Hi, Sonia. Great to see you again. I know it's been a few weeks since I was last here, and I think these chats are really helping. But I have more questions.
So you're the voice of the parents again.
Yes.
Well, I think it's wonderful. Thank you for coming. I'm really happy to answer the questions in the best way I can in my testimony of my own walk. But of course, I don't have all the answers. We know who does, though. Hey,
Yes, this
yes.
is true. This is true. But let's dive straight into it. And today I really want to focus primarily on single parents. And that was a question that really seemed to come through is and it actually comes from a friend of mine who I was in high school with, and she is a single mother, and her daughter is now starting in grade one this year at a regular school. And she works from home, and so her concern was really in terms of time and time management. And so, how many families are there within Oikos that are single parent families, either a single mother or even single fathers? I think let's not think that a single parent is only a mother. There are many households in the world that are run by single fathers. But
Great.
in terms of time, can a single parent who works from home still homeschool their child?
Well, to answer that question, the first part was how many families in Oikos are single parents, and I can't answer that question. You'd think that I should be able to, considering that we are Oikos, but we don't actually keep those kinds of records because of the fact that number one, we keep everybody's records confidential, so I wouldn't give out numbers as such. Secondly, I wouldn't be able to keep up with how many are single parents unless I ask them that if you are not single at the moment, but then circumstances happen which
And
causes you
change.
to change, and now you find yourself as being a single parent, I wouldn't require of them to be letting us know that along the way, along their life journey. So I can't answer the question of how many. What I can say, though, is that there are single parents home educating within Oikos, and not just a few. There's quite a few, not a small number. And across the world, of course, there's plenty single parent families. So if that's what you're asking today and that's your question, I would first of all say that I'm not a single parent myself, so I wouldn't have the same kind of experience and know the struggles intimately of what single parents go through, because I can't presume that I know that because I'm not a single parent. So, but I do hear from a lot of single parents, and we've actually had single parents that have come and chatted with us. And in fact, right within our very own family, our extended family, there are single parent scenarios, such as my own sister-in-laws, because we lost my brothers, and so tragically. So we have traveled the journey of supporting a single parent situation that's not my own walk, but supporting another's within our own family as well as Oikos families. So yes, plenty single parent of home educating their children, whether it be one or three or five, they are managing it. They have to adjust and adapt their circumstances, their own scenario to fit their situation. Now, in the instance of this lady that you mentioned that is working from home, is normally the first step to make it actually possible. Because if you're working from home, it's more likely that you can actually manage this home education. I mean, how does a single parent go out to work and home educate at home?
Yes.
I don't know how they do that, but in fact, some do because they get a tutor, and they've got just a morning a situation where they go to office hours in the morning only and they come home in the afternoon. So it's a half day and they do the rest of their work at home. In fact, only a couple of weeks ago, a mom spoke to me about the fact that she was a personal assistant for somebody, and she went to the person and said, look, I need to home educate my children next year. Can we arrange a change of my work hours? And so he said, sure, you tell me when you can, because you can continue doing this work for me from home. But I do need to see you on a routine basis. So now she could choose. Is she going to go 2 full days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, or is she going to go a few hours every day? So she and her husband discussed how they're going to work this. Now, this is not a single parent. This is now a working mother that is trying to work out how do I home educate and also continue bringing the income. So they worked it out, and she's now doing a few hours a day where she goes into the office, and then she does the rest of her PA functions from home while she's going to home educate. But back to the actual single parenting. You also mentioned this friend of yours, this person that wrote about, you knew her from high school.
Yes.
You mentioned that her parents live with them.
Yes.
Which makes it even more doable because now she's got other adults in the environment to assist with the whole process. I think that's wonderful. Grandparent involvement to me is fantastic. It really, really helps, and it needs to help. That's another topic that we could talk about is grandparents, because sometimes it's a very negative thing that grandparents are not supporting this. And so there's a lot of negativity around that often. But that might be the case for a single parent specifically, because maybe the parents are not supporting the idea of the mother or father, that single parent wanting to home educate. But let's presume that this person, a single parent, has chosen to home educate, and now they're going, how am I going to do this? How am I going to manage? First of all, it is doable. Secondly, it's a positive thing, because if they're working from home, they involve their children. This is the example of my own family situation, whereby a single mom involved her son in the work she's doing. And so that becomes whereby they become very in touch with one another's needs. So, for example, the mom is needing to get some deadline met, and so now the child or children help with the household duties or help with getting a meal together, while mom is busy at her computer trying to get to the point of completing a particular task, because she's also now the breadwinner, needing to bring in the finances to support the family. So there tends to be an understanding amongst them, which is very positive. It creates a tight family unit as well.
And an openness within that, because they now, even from a young age, maybe start to realize the responsibilities of what it means to be an adult. And so rather than perhaps shield them from, I mean, there's still a fair amount of shielding that will happen, but you can, as they mature, perhaps expose them to more and more of the reality of being an adult.
Correct. So there's a lot of positive that come from it. There's another, I could respond to that on another topic, as far as not burdening the children with too much responsibility at too young an age, because a child must be a child. They must protect their childhood. And there can be a tendency with single parenting, more so, to be reliant on the child for things that are actually adult responsibilities. So one just has to be careful. So a single parent has different considerations on many levels. And because I haven't walked that walk, but because I know many do, and I actually see a positive results of that, I don't see negative coming from it. It normally is a really good picture that you see. I would suggest to parents that are wanting to home educate, that are single parents, that they connect with other single parents, find out how they're doing it, because every household is so unique to itself. So each single parent is going to have to find a way that works for them. But I think the thing that overrides all of this is the parent is committed to the child and saying, although I'm a single parent, and although I'm having to be the breadwinner as well, and although I'm having to work, I still want to be able to be invested in my child and have time for them. Or I can't, and so because I've got to work, and so I've got to put the child in school. But now the parent's heart is feeling a bit tugged towards, it's not working out so well. There's a reason why the parent is maybe looking into home education, maybe that's not suiting the child to be in a school setting. It might not be suiting the parent. It might just not be working for them. And so now the parent is looking at a possibility of bringing their child home, but going, how can I, and is it possible, or their children. And I would like to say it is possible, especially if they're working from home, and even if they're not. I mean, I really know of a number of situations where a single parent is working full time, but they're home educated. You go, well, how does that work? And they've worked it out. They've got help. Mom's help. Their mother, grandparent is helping. They've got tutors. They're working it out, whereby the child is in the protective environment of the home, because that's what the parent knows that child needs. And the parent's heart is for the best for the child. And so they're doing whatever they can to get that best in place. So I think I need to leave a parent that's considering home educating, a single parent, I would like to leave a message of courage with them, to take courage, to follow the convictions of their heart, to not be afraid. We've even done a course on Oikos side, top 10 fears. And also to see that it's actually what God wants. God wants that parent to be invested in their child and to have a heart towards the child with regard to protection and safety and education and provision. So now this single parent has more to consider than if they weren't a single parent, because their load is not shared as much, possibly. So it can seem overwhelming to them, like, I don't know how I can do it, but I want to. Well, they can, with God's help. I would think God would like them to, and so He's going to help them if they remember to call on Him and ask for His help and call on the help of others around them, or that they maybe don't know many single parents. Maybe they go to church and there's not many single parents there, or maybe there are. But then there's this wonderful network of the internet that enables you to make contact with people that have already walked this journey. And perhaps that's what single parents need to do, is get a network going to give a bit of a support structure around them so they can see that others are doing it and that it is doable, and the positive results of it, the good that comes from it. So I'm not going to discourage a single parent and go, no, well, it's going to be too hard for you, so don't think about doing that. Rather put them in school. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, you bring them home and you love and nurture, and don't stress about the finances and how am I going to afford, because if you've got the word and you're loving your child and your finances are incredibly limited, it's okay. That's even okay. They mustn't let finances stop them from making the decision to do what's best for their child, because at the end of the day, the safety, the security, I mean, if that child's been hurt in a system, I don't even want to go to the stories I've heard. And that's why this is a very sensitive topic for me, because I know children that have been hurt, and the parent finds out that they've been hurt, and that parent's a single parent and goes, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, I'm thinking years and years back now, before home education was even so attainable. Parents that are desperate. I mean, the one parent, I even wrote a song for this parent because she was absolutely broken in pain over what her child was going through. In the place of care, she was leaving her child, a little person. And she said, what am I going to do? I mean, I can't take him anymore. He's been hurt. I said, well, don't take him there. Keep him with you. But I can't, because, and it was, I can't. And yes, you can. And she made a way, and she called on God, and He showed her the way, a way that it can be done. And so now, as you can understand, that's a better story. The end of that story is so much better than leaving that child at a place where he was being hurt. Yes, she could have maybe found another place where it was safe and he wasn't carry on and not home educated. Her answer was that she kept him at home, and the end story is a good one. So I'm going to encourage parents to protect their children and bring them home into the fold of the home and the safety net, if that's what is required, and that's what the parent is seeking. They should follow it. That conviction.
And on that, I actually want to ask a follow-on question from that. And you've already kind of alluded to bringing the child home. So say a single parent has put their child into mainstream school, and as you say, they really feel convicted that it's not working, they need to remove their child from mainstream school. Are there any difficulties in that, I suppose? And we could maybe talk about this a little later, but it's a thing of the parent knowing what's best and what society says you should be doing versus what the Word of God and what you as a parent know is best for your child. Would there be any harm in taking a child who's been, be it for a few months or 1 or 2 years, or even maybe 5-6 years in mainstream school, and saying, actually, we're now going to home educate? Is there any harm that the child might be exposed to in any way by doing that, academically, socially, whatever the case might be?
Not according to what I have seen and heard. Now, this is one of those that I can't actually share from personal experience, because we didn't have our children in school and then brought them out of school and experienced that, done that, walked that journey, because we haven't. So I can't speak from personal experience. But what I can do is say to you, the thing that stands out the most in the answer to that is, I wish I'd done it sooner. If only I had the courage to do this sooner, That's what I hear, overriding most other things. That's not to say that it wasn't difficult. It's not to say that of their 3 children they took out of school, the 2 of them were just like loved it. Oh, thank you, mommy, daddy, thank you, or mom or dad, if it's a single parent situation. And they just are so grateful that now they can be at home and they can. And one of the 3 is going grumpy. I don't want to. And my friends and the sport and whatever all the other things are, that child wants to go back to school for. What's interesting is they don't want to go back to school because of, but the maths teacher and it's not normally that they wanting to go back for the learning. It's normally they wanting to go back because of something social, that they were maybe the social child in the family. And of course we know as parents we can do something about that. But I don't think we need to spend so much time on attending to the social friendships external of our children. We need to spend time on the family and the relationships of siblings. That needs to take the focus, not the external. But anyway, another topic. The transition from bringing your children home and into the home, what I've heard people say is they wanted to do it sooner. They would have preferred to have done it sooner when they see the results, that it was difficult for some of the children and not others. That some families have chosen to take a season of like a break where they're not introducing any kind of learning, and then they might have a child in that situation that feels like their learning's been neglected, but they were a very studious type of child, and now they feel like their parents, what have they done? They've forgotten that I need to learn, and so that could affect one child adversely. So you ask if there's any negatives or any adverse effects on the child. There can be if the parent handles it incorrectly. So there's a right way to do it, and the right way to do it is family. We have decided we're moving to Australia. Judy, you see what I'm saying? I mean, we're going to take you out of school and we're going to another country. I mean, they might not like that idea. What about the cousins? What about the family? What about the church friends? What about the community? The children might really take strain with it. And one of the children might be, when are we leaving? Yippee, yay, this is a big adventure. I can't wait. And so everyone's going to respond differently. But how are the parents going to deliver that message of we're immigrating, or we're home educating, or we're moving house? It's change. It's change from being in a certain environment, as in school, or this community, or this suburb, and now we're going to move to another suburb, or we're going to move to another province, we're going to move to another country. It's how the parent delivers it and how the parent handles it. I met a mom a couple of weeks ago when we were on a road trip, and she said they'd moved 7 times in 8 years. And I said, oh my goodness. And there's all these statistical studies about moving as the most stressful, and I said to her, oh my goodness, shame. And she said, no, it's not. It's wonderful. She said, yes. She said, we become expert packers. We don't carry any clutter around with us anymore because it's too much for like hard work. And she's sort of running off all the positives of moving and how the family had become so connected that they depended on each other, because they knew there's no point in getting involved too much in things too deeply that might pass away. But we need to pull together as a family because we're going to need each other at that next place. And their lifestyle was such that it was going to be like that. She just knew they're going to move every year, and that's the kind of lifestyle they have. So she had taken on the idea of making it a good thing, not letting it be something that was just going to destroy them. Okay, and so the same thing applies to any change. I would suggest to a single parent or any parent that is bringing their children out of school to make this transition one that is a family matter, where we're doing this together. We need to pull together. It's going to be everyone's going to experience it differently, but they need to know, the children need to know, that this isn't just a decision the parents taken lightly. The parents not being neglectful, or the parent hasn't not considered all the aspects that they need, because it's a big decision, and the parent has clearly gone through a lot of processes to arrive at this decision. So why not let the children know? We're doing this because we have really agonized over this, and this is what we've arrived at because of our care for you, because we love you and we want you protected. And I'm a bit distracted in my own thoughts at the moment, because I'm thinking about a something you read to me from a comment from somebody.
Yes.
And I just thought, maybe as I'm thinking about it, why don't you just read that that's talking about this
Let me
particular
find it
topic?
quickly. Well, this is actually
transition, I think.
another. Well, this was a homeschooling parent that I know of in America. And her comment was, I would say that any parent who isn't negligent could manage to homeschool. But I would assume negligent parents aren't attempting to homeschool. There are as many ways to do it right as there are children. And yes, I think, like you say, it's a thing of, if you have care for your kids, if you invested in your kids, you will make the decision that's right for them, be that homeschool or mainstream school. But if you know in your heart that you need to be homeschooling your children, then don't be negligent and leave them in mainstream school.
And also, don't be negligent in not attending to the steps that need to be taken to help them with this transition. So that friend who wrote to you about there's nobody that can't home educate, but perhaps if you're negligent, it's not going to go well. And that will apply to anything. If you are negligent in any area in your parenting, it's not going to go well. So don't be negligent.
Yes.
Regardless of what you're facing and what you're having to deal with, as I mentioned, whether it's moving country or bringing your children home from mainstream school, as you said.
And I kind of alluded to this earlier, is you're going to have what society almost dictates as normal versus what you know is the right thing for you as a parent to do. And sometimes, and it's not necessarily, obviously we're talking about homeschooling, but there might be things where society says one thing, but hey, that's not the best for me. I'm going to do something different. And society might look at you and say, well, look at them, look what they're doing. But at the end of the day, you know what's best for you. So when it comes to homeschooling and home educating, society might say, oh, but your child should be in mainstream school because of X, Y, Z. But because of whatever the circumstances are, that home educating is best for your child. Would you agree with that?
Mark, I would be always very hesitant to say that homeschooling is best for your child. First of all, we tend to not say homeschooling because it can conjure up bringing school and putting it in the home, those kinds of thoughts. So we sort of go with the learning lifestyle and education more broadly. Is it best for every child? I say I'm hesitant to say yes, it is. But I want to say yes, it is, because if I just think of it for a few seconds, I consider what is God's best. And God's best is for parents to be as He needs them to be for the children He's entrusted to their care. So to me, the more committed you are and the more invested you are in that, the better. Now, it might be so that a child needs to be in a different environment for education purposes for whatever reason, and then that would be the best that the parent's decision is for that individual. So I feel as it's not right, or it's not my place to say that it's best for the child to be at home. That's what my heart says, though, because my heart says our children need to be near us. Our children need to be protected and nurtured and cared for. That's what my heart says. But as I say, I can't presume that I can know what is right for every individual. Like, for example, if we think of the horrificness of neglected children out there in the world at the moment, it's hard to bear to think about that. So if I'm thinking of them at this moment, immediately I would think what's best for them is to get into a home environment, to get into a protective environment, to get into a loving, caring, nurturing. We're not even talking about education. Yes. We're just talking about the healing of that broken child. To me, that's what I think would be best, is for that child to be loved. And wherever that can happen in the best and whole way, the most wholesome way possible, that would be best for the child, whatever that way is. You might have picked up on the Oikos site that we support children's homes as well. So now that's not children that are home educated. They're not being homeschooled. They're in a children's home. But the carers in that children's home are loving them and caring for them. So they use Oikos resources to support the carer, to support the carer in being able to provide the child with educational material. But we are always encouraging the carers of children in children's homes to be attentive to the child's soul and spirit and take care of their educational needs later. Because first of all, just love that child, because once they're loved and nurtured and healed, they will be able to learn. But not very effectively before then, in my experience of watching children and seeing that a broken child it's not easy for a broken child to learn maths. It's not actually even important. What's important is that child is healed, their heart and their soul and their spirit. So I'm not sure if that's answering the question, because it's a little bit broad, but that is our heart on the matter.
I suppose we could just say that, again, each parent is going to know what is best for their child. Mm-hmm. And regardless of what society tries to dictate, you are the parent, not society. Mm-hmm. You need to make that decision. You need to follow through with that decision. And as you said, it's not necessarily going to be easy, but if you have support of friends, family, community, wherever you can get that support, it makes the journey and the transition a lot easier. And again, looking at single parents, I think it's a case of trying maybe a little harder to get that support, because you might feel overwhelmed initially, because you've had, okay, I've got to look after the home, I've got to be the breadwinner, now I need to educate, now I'm juggling all these things. And maybe that's the daunting thing for them, is how am I going to do all of that? And then, as you say, if you get help from wherever it may come from, it just makes it easier, and they'll have that peace in knowing that the decision that they've made is the right decision.
And what about the fact that also how they think about it could help them? Instead of it feeling like a daunting task, they can be excited about it and think, wow, this is something we're going to do. We're going to do this together. We can do this. You know, like the lady that moves every year, that the same thing, look at it differently and think of it differently. And that parent has been a parent all the time, every day of the week. The fact that a certain portion of the week is taken out and education is happening somewhere else doesn't stop the parent from being a parent. And so parenting as in home educating and being a parent in the home educating environment is just continued parenting. On the weekend, they've been a parent and the child's asking questions nonstop all weekend, and you're doing things with your child, they're learning. You're teaching them. It's natural. It's not something that needs to be considered as daunting.
Okay, the one thing, and I think we've almost kind of neglected some parents in the sense by we say that, oh, parents know what's best for their children. And there might be parents out there saying, well, I don't know what's best for my child, because one moment my child's here, the next moment my child's here, and they don't necessarily understand the needs of their children, where to meet their children. How does one solve that problem?
Well, that's an interesting one, because it's actually less uncommon than we would like it to be, because it's a big reality. And I'm glad you bring it up, because there are parents out there that are saying, but I don't know what's best for my child. I truly don't know. And it really is daunting for me. And I really do feel overwhelmed. And they really are having those emotions and those feelings, and they're afraid and they're worn out, and they just don't know up from down and left from right. And so that's their reality. And their reality is that because of circumstances, because they've been pulled from one side to the other, they've tried to accommodate the child, they've tried to meet this child that they're feeling like they really don't know what's best for him or her. They've tried this and they've tried that and tried and tried and tried, and now they're at their wits' end, and they're saying to themselves, I don't know what's best for them. So I would like to say that to that parent, God knows what's best. And so if they seek God on the matter, He does know what's best. If they spend time in His Word and they go and they say, Lord, I don't know what's best anymore. I don't even know how to make the right choice for this child. I know you require that of me. I know I want to be a good parent, but I'm at my wit's end. And that could be the case with a single parent or any parent out there. So I would suggest that parent spends time here and actually puts it to the Lord. Say, I don't know what to do about this anymore. And then maybe go to that child and say, we need to pray about it. I need to know, you to know that it appears that thus far, all the things we have done together to try to find the way, we feel lost. We don't feel like we know the way. So we are praying about it, or I as a parent, or us, the parents, are praying about this. And we would just want you to know that we are there for you. We are seeking God to find the way that is right. And so having that conversation and pulling together instead of apart could be helpful. I have had a response to that. When I suggested that to a mom a little while ago, she said her son won't let her talk to him. You know, she said when she tries to talk to him, he won't let her. And I thought, well, hang on a minute. Where does a young mana in the household decide that his parent may or may not talk to him? There's something wrong there. So I said to her, who's the authority in your home? So she said, well, I don't have any authority anymore. So I thought, well, you see, now there's the problem. The child is going to feel insecure because the parent themselves doesn't feel like they've got authority because she can't exercise her authority because the child won't let her. Well, there's a whole lot of things wrong there. So what I would suggest is go and see what God is saying about that. God says, I've given you the authority to raise these children that I've entrusted to your care. So you need to say to your child, God has given me authority over you. He didn't give you authority over me. That's not how it works. That's not how it is. And if it goes that way, it's back to front, upside down, and that is why we feel that at sea the way we do. So we've got to get that right first. So I just encouraged her and I said to her, you need to get that right first. Go to the Word, find out what God is saying to you about authority, about the authority He's given you. And then you need to let your child know that you are an authority. And then when you say to him, we are praying about this, it can't be, well, he won't let you talk to him. He won't let you say that to him. You may say that to your child if your child is speaking to you disrespectfully. You may say to your child, you may not speak to me like that. That is disrespectful, and this is why, and this is how. And you're training and coaching your child. Your child does not need to train and coach you. It's the wrong way round, and you're going to have trouble. Now, we're on to another subject altogether, another topic altogether now. So
I think before we go too far down the rabbit hole,
yes.
I think we could probably conclude there.
Yes.
Just by saying that be in God's Word and pray about it. If you are struggling to find what's best for your child, or you are a single parent, or you're trying to make the decision homeschool versus regular school, be in God's Word, be praying about it, because ultimately He's the one who's going to guide you in that decision. And once you have the peace about it, as difficult as it might seem in the flesh, go for it, because God is going to be there for you every step of the way.
It will be difficult in the flesh, but the peace will give you strength.
Yes.
And the joy and the conviction and the knowing you're doing what is best. That should give a parent strength to press on and persevere. And if they feel they don't have the perseverance and the patience and all the things,
you can pray for it.
Well, in actual fact, all parents are going to feel, I'm not patient enough. Or, well, if they don't feel and they feel completely confident in every area, well, I mean, at the end of the day, we have our flesh to deal with. And so none of us have everything that it takes, but we have God. And I can't leave this out because of the fact that we've got Konos. And Konos was just a fantastic tool for me, an aid to me, to help instill these various characteristics that help us to persevere and get through. I mean, we've got an entire unit in Konos, in the Konos manual, that's determination. So let's be determined people and let's press on towards His best always, and the goals that He has set, that God has set before us, not what man, society, you mentioned that a couple of times, that society's demands are such. Well, I want to ask people to just check, where do those line up with God's goals? They're very often just not the same. Yes. So we prefer to go with what God's goal is, and how do we find that? We found that in His Word, spending time here. And so let's hope that people that have shared this moment with us today, let's hope that they feel encouraged and they feel strengthened and they feel convicted and ready and have peace to pursue the things that God has before them. I hope so.
Indeed, yes. And so if you are a single parent or you're not sure what is the best step for your child or where to go from there, I hope this was encouraging for you.
I hope so too.
Again, be in God's word, pray about it, and let Him be your guide, rather than the wisdom of man, which, again, the word says the foolishness of God outstrips worldly wisdom. So He knows what's best. And so I hope this helped. And Sonia, I look forward to coming for some more tea and bombarding you with more questions again.
And being the voice of the parents again.
Yes.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad that we could chat again. Thanks for coming, Mark.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching and thanks for being with us. We, as Mark said, we hope that this has been encouraging for you, and we do hope to see you again. And if you have your own specific questions, you can send them to help@oikosfamily.co.za and we will attend to them, perhaps in another chat time.
Indeed.
So thanks for being with us.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.